Hello there, this is Greg. I've got some old pieces of lumber that I want to use today on a project. I want to use these pieces of lumber in combination with some of my old vintage photos, and I also want to use some of my boxes of stuff that I've got. I've just got some really cool accumulations here of junk and stuff that would be neat in an assemblage project. Most of the projects that I do are usually boxes that are very layered and they're covered with glass. This particular project is basically going to be very flat. Everything is going to just kind of float on the surface of the piece of wood. I do have one that's already finished. This is it right here. I got to kind of turn it sideways a little bit so you can see it a little more clearly. You can see that the wood itself, this is one solid block of wood, by the way. In fact, it's an old piece of redwood. This isn't pine. This is an old piece of redwood that I got at a recycling center. And then, of course, my vintage photos, some of my old rusted hardware. There's a neat old tool that I got here. There's some window hardware down here at the bottom. I've screwed everything in with the black drywall screws. I've covered the box with my dictionary pages that have been dyed with my alcohol inks. I make my own alcohol dyes, alcohol inks. And then I've sanded it all down, aged it a little bit. I put some hanging equipment on the back. But anyway, this is the direction that I want to go right now. Nothing is covered with glass as it usually is. I usually love having everything, just kind of sealed in with glass. This project I think is not going to be that way at all. So I've got several more pieces of this big heavy wood, and I'm going to go to work on this and play with my, let's see here, I've got another box here, play with my assortment of stuff that I've collected and see what I can do here. So anyway, I'll get back with you and show you where I'm headed with this. I'm continuing the preparation on my big old boards. The boards have been covered with my dictionary paper, and they've been of course dyed with the alcohol dye, and now I'm sanding them down. It really is a nice a great way to add some aging to all of this. Some of the board underneath does show through. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and add kind of a real light wash of a little more of the blue alcohol dye to all the sides of the board, and then I'll let it dry, and then I think it'll be ready to go. So this board is ready to go. It looks pretty rough right now, but once I sand it down. My sander, by the way, I use one of the little Black & Decker mouse sanders, which is really handy, and it comes with the Velcro sandpaper, different size grits that you can put on it. But anyway, this has been a great tool that I use really often. So let me see, I've got a couple boards already sanded so far, and I'll move on to the next project after this, or the next part of my project after this. Okay, I've got all my boards pretty much sanded. You can see that there's some exposed wood that comes through, which is just fine, which is really what I want to have happen here. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go back with a real light layer of my alcohol dye, and I'm going to just kind of, I'm just going to kind of paint over it with the alcohol dye. The alcohol dye will kind of stain the exposed wood a little bit, which I think even kind of adds to the aging process. By the way, my alcohol dye, again, I explain this, tell this all the time. I use either RIT liquid dye, or I use powdered dyes, and I mix everything with just plain old rubbing alcohol. I've got 70% alcohol here. You can also get 90 or 99% alcohol, which seems to work, I think, even a little bit better, because the dye kind of dissolves better in a higher content of alcohol. Then I mix it in baby food jars. There's really no formula. I mix it until I kind of get the right color that that I want. But anyway, I'm going to go back and re-dye with very light colors on the boards that I've already sanded. And then once I've done that, I use my heat gun, and I'll go back and kind of dry everything really nicely. So anyway, that's kind of where I am right at the moment. So I've got my blocks of wood completely aged as far as I want them. They're sanded. I've done kind of a double coating of my alcohol dye. I could go back and sand them one more time, but that probably would be overkill. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to just start on this is more of the fun part for me. I get to kind of play with all my stuff. I want to use my vintage photos and then my rusted hardware kinds of things to actually create my piece. So I've got a great assortment, well, not a great assortment, but a nice assortment of some stuff that I want to use. I got this thing at a flea market, and it's obviously some kind of a chopper, but I don't know exactly what it cuts or chops. But I'm thinking I'm going to do something like this right over her eyes, and this is the bottom piece of an oil can, an old rusted oil can without the top is missing, of course, the pumper for the top. But I'm thinking I might put that down at the bottom, and then something just as simple. It's a piece from an old Erector set that I'm going to screw up here at the top, so you can kind of see